all set for Northern Talent Cup Race 2 here in the Sachsenring. However, this is how it all looked coming into the weekend at Most, with lots of battles up and down the field before they headed into the Sachsenring here in Germany for round number 5. Van Kruchten still leads the way, but ahead of yesterday's Race 1 winner, the 38 of Tobias Kitzbichler on the Racing Team Kitzbichler machine. Unfortunately, it would be Tom Rowland that would get the advantage of Van Kruchten, who would push him further back down the field in terms of the points advantage. And it would be Antoine Nativi that would pick up second position in yesterday's race. And we look forward to race number 2 in the Sachsenring here today. Good afternoon, guten Tag, and welcome to race 2 of the Northern Talent Cup from what was, until now, a sun-kissed 3.67 kilometre, 2.28 mile Sachsenring circuit in the wonderful Saxony region, known for its very fine cuisine and a great stop for any fans on the calendar. And for today, the fans have witnessed 3 barnstorming races, and we have one to go as the stars of the future line up as they continue on their career trajectory on the road to MotoGP. I'm Liam Hodgins, and joining me as a man that enjoys his food and a spirited beverage is our man on the side, Chris Jordan. Chris, how are you? And welcome to what should be a very good race number 2 here in the Sachsenring for Northern Talent Cup.
Yeah, thanks very much, Liam. And I do wonder how long you spend each night writing these zingers. Each time you introduce me onto one of these commentary shows, it's something different and it's something creative, but I say keep them coming, Liam, keep them coming. So some great action we had yesterday. Looking forward to more of the same today. And isn't it just a wonder to see that the weather seemingly has abated, and that it looks we're going to have some better conditions than we did yesterday. This time yesterday we saw the riders take 2 or 3 sighting laps to get to grips with what was a drying but very, very damp track. And then, of course, Tobias Kitzbichler was the rider who really got to grips with it quickest, I suppose, Liam. He ran away with victory. Yes,
he did indeed. I must admit, before we go on to that, I do enjoy sitting for many hours a night coming up with a great intro for you, so it does make my night even more special. But as you say, Tobias Kitzbichler there, yes, he does eat into the advantage of Jeroen Van Kruchten in terms of the championship. Only down to 21 points now. Van Kruchten came into yesterday's race 25 points ahead. But you were talking about there the weather. It's good to see that it's a bone dry circuit for now. But Chris, as I was heading over to join you in the commentary box, there were some spots of rain, so fingers crossed the rain does stay away for this 16-lap shootout in race number 2.
Yeah, you sound like the harbinger of doom, Liam, bringing that weather report here. But here's hoping we have clear skies and some dry racing. So I'm looking forward to this one. As we mentioned, it was Kitzbichler who ran away with it yesterday. Van Kruchten just missing out on the podium, but some brilliant rides from the likes of Anton Nativi and Tom Rowland. Nativi particularly, he was at the battle at the back of what, a 3-way fight for those final 2 podium places, and then he struck very late on, showing plenty of racecraft in the wet and drying conditions, the mixed conditions I should say. So he'll be expecting more of the same. He moved up to 3rd in the championship behind Kitzbichler, and Van Kruchten, as you say, is 21 points clear. Richard Irmscher also moved up a little bit. Well, he dropped down, but he's the other rider who has hit the 100-point mark so far in 2024.
Yeah, he's on the big 100 as Richard Irmscher, the rider that we must keep an eye on in today's race. He really did struggle in the wet conditions yesterday. That was the number 46 of Matteo Massili. He was sitting 2nd in the championship going into race number 1 yesterday, but dropped a whopping 3 positions all the way down to 5th. He's on 99 points, and his championship, Chris, really did take a massive body blow.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be starting from the 3rd row, so less than ideal, particularly in those mixed conditions. And where did he end up finishing in yesterday's race? It was far down the order, P11, so picking up just the 5 points. But he is a podium regular across this season, and even last season he was on the podium here in the Sachsenring, picking up a P3. He had picked 2 podiums in 2022, and he's got how many this season, Liam? He's got 2. but no wins as of yet.
Yeah, you have a feeling that maybe that first race win might just be around the corner, and he'd be hoping to grab some big points back on the man we see on screen, Jeroen van Kruchten. Just off the podium yesterday, however, he did pick up some very important points, 13 points for 4th place. He almost nabbed the final podium position, but a bit of a moment coming out of the penultimate corner, that allowed Tom Rowland to slide on past and nab the final podium off him, just behind this rider on screen, Antoine Nattivi. The 15-year-old Frenchman, he put in a great performance towards the end, setting the fastest lap of the race, Chris.
Yeah, super stuff. Only 0.4 of a second separated that trio of Nattivi, Rowland and Van Kruchten as they crossed the line. So with drier conditions, don't be yawning too early yet, sir. We've got plenty of action coming your way to keep you on the edge of your seat. But going back onto yesterday's, it was only 0.4 of a second between that podium trio, with Van Kruchten the one to miss out. I'd imagine a bigger group is going to form this time around. Tom Rowland then, podium yesterday. Only 14 years old, the Belgian rider, but he's certainly shown some class in this season.
Yeah, I was just wondering what I was doing at 14 years old, and it certainly wasn't racing some very powerful 250 single-cylinder machines around this wonderful Sachsenring circuit. So, yeah, these riders are very talented, and indeed, and as you were just saying quite rightly there, Chris, I do believe we'll see a very different race today. We had Kitzberger running off into the distance, almost at 1.10 seconds ahead of everyone else. But today we could see maybe 6, 7 or 8 riders in the leading group, including Levin Pomara, he was fighting for the victory here in the dry conditions in Sachsenring earlier on in the year, but yesterday he had a nightmare. He did eventually finish in 8th, but struggled along the way.
Yeah, his day went from bad to worse, as well as the Swiss got knocked out of the European Championships by England, which we touched on yesterday. But there was some Dutch delight later in the evening. We'll be seeing if Jeroen van Kruchten can make a double Dutch delight. But yeah, Levin Pomara, he's been around now a couple of seasons, race winner last season. Hasn't been back on the top step as of yet, nor the podium. But this is his first front row, came in 24. He was a race winner in Assen, and he's the brother of Lennox Pomara, who was a contender in last season's NTC, coming runner-up in the championship.
Yeah, Lennox and Levin, 2 big names to watch out for the future. And the rider we're seeing on screen now, Richard Irmscher, the rider on the number 95 machine, as Chris said earlier on, reached 100 points at the full ton up in yesterday's race, moved up to 4th in the championship ahead of Matteo Massili. He's not scored, and he missed out on points in the first race in Most, but picked up a podium in the second race. He'll be hoping to do more of the same here today.
Yeah, he was on pole position in Most as well, wasn't he? Just the rookie, first time out. He crashed out of the lead as well in race 1, round 4 back in Most. So that was disappointment from him from pole. But he did back it up in the second race by picking up that P3. Matteo Massili then, we've already mentioned the number 46, a couple podiums in his NTC career so far. He's got 2 so far this year, one of them coming at the Sachsenring in race 2. Ben Wigner then, the number 26, he launches from the middle of the 3rd row. A rider that was fastest in testing in Oschersleben. He was picked up a pole position as well at the Sachsenring last time out in the first visit to the Sachsenring in 2024. He's on the 3rd row now, and our man on the ground, Oliver Seeley, has touted him for big things in the future.
Well, the great thing there about Ben Wagner, as you quite rightly pointed out, set pole position here in round 2, also holds the lap record around the Sachsenring with a 1:38.0.
So your grid is Jeroen van Kruchten starting on pole position. The championship leader will be joined by Anton Nattivi and Tom Rowland on the front row. Then it's Levin Pomara, yesterday's race winner. Kitzbühel and Irmscher are 5th and 6th on the grid. Massili, Wigner and Alessandro Binder make up the 3rd row. Then it's Belgian rider Vlierackers with Martin Vince and Pontillo. Starting 13th is Julius Frelsen. He's joined by Wenzel and Kovacs. While on the back 2 rows are Emprin, Krabacher, Melgren. Melgren rode from 18th to P6 yesterday. And at the very back of the grid is Weisel, Sidorov and Greven.
Now the riders make the way on the warm-up lap. We're watching the championship leader has lead cut down from 25 to 21 points in yesterday's race number 1. 36 goes from pole position, a career first pole position in the Northern Talent Cup. He was, as of yesterday, at this time, the only rider in the Northern Talent Cup to have won more than one race. However, yesterday's race winner, Tobias Kitzbichler, joined him as a multiple race winner in 2024. If Kitzbichler wants to keep eating into that championship advantage, he's going to have to try and add a third win to his arsenal. Can he go from two-time Tobias to a three-timer in race number 2? We can only wait and see, and we're looking forward to it.
Sorry to cut across, just to touch on Kitzbichler. He seems to have found form at the right time. Race winner here yesterday, but he did double P2 in Most as well. So he's that's 3 consecutive podiums, not been outside the top 2 on the last 2 rounds. He'd be hoping for more of the same. He picked up a race 2 win in the opening round, and since then across Sachsenring and Oschersleben he only picked up a handful of points, but he seems to have found form right time.
Yeah, we're in the third to last round of the championship, and if you're going to start mounting an assault on Van Kruchten's championship, this is the perfect time to do it. As we have been talking about, there are your championship standings. Van Kruchten leading the way, 21 points ahead of Kitzbichler. Nativi, he's fired himself into championship contention as well with his second place yesterday, and I'm sure he is 32 points back with 100, yes I will repeat that, 125 points still left on the board. And Chris, Northern Talent Cup, anything can happen, and we usually find out it does. Yeah,
absolutely, and very much hoping that it's going to be one of those races here today, Liam.
Indeed, 16 laps of full Northern Talent Cup action awaits us here for round number 5 at this Sachsenring. These Honda 250 NSF bikes get underway now on a big stop there for the number 46. That's Masili, yellow flags waving. Thankfully nobody collides with the Italian rider, but a great start from Nativi, that looks like, on the 27, and we've got even better start from yesterday's race 1 winner, Tobias Kitzbichler, into second spot. But it is your championship leader, the 36 Van Kruchten, from pole position, who gets a whole shot through the opening couple of corners as he plunged downhill into the right hand of the Omega curve. It is Van Kruchten from Pomara, says. So Pomara, great start there from the middle of the second row. Thankfully, that's the 46 of Masili, who had a disastrous day yesterday. He thankfully avoided any contact with any rider as he did miss the start. So thankfully, Matteo Masili is in this race, but that's a disaster for his championship. But great opening lap so far for your championship leader, Van Kruchten, who does lead the way from Tobias Kitzbichler.
Yeah, Masili's weekend just goes from bad to worse. Absolutely stonking start off the grid, but we already have a breakaway duo out front, and it is Van Kruchten and Kitzbichler. Your championship top 2 are going toe-to-toe here. This time it's Van Kruchten who holds the advantage, but for how long? Down the waterfall we come, and it's the Austrian Kitzbichler who is the inside line and makes a move, stick up the inside, and it did not take long for the number 38 to take control of this race. Now let's see what his pace is like. Does Van Kruchten have an answer? He most certainly does. He retakes the lead, the young Dutch rider.
Yeah, elbow to elbow to come across the start finish line to complete lap number 1. It's Kitzbichler, yesterday's race 1 winner, leading the way ahead of your championship leader, Van Kruchten. These are the top 2 in the Northern Talent Cup Championship, and it's Kitzbichler leading into turn 1. No, Van Kruchten with a late dive to the inside at turn number 1 as they start lap number 2. Some bumping and boring further back there. That looked like it might be Nativi and also Binder that was pushed out a little bit wide on the number 86 machine. However, these two are now starting to make a bit of a break through sector number 1 on lap number 2. The lead over Flea Rackers, Nativi and Roland, is up to 1 second. But we did see yesterday that Van Kruchten loves to get his elbows out, and he's not afraid to dish out anything it gets done on him.
Yeah, you mentioned Flea Rackers there. He is one that has been touted to keep an eye on this weekend. Didn't quite perform, perhaps, as he would have liked in the mixed conditions of yesterday, but the number 28 is currently running in 4th position and swarming all over the rear end of Tom Rowland. So Flea Rackers is one to watch in this dry race, but as things stand, we have a breakaway duo of Van Kruchten leading over the number 38 of Tobias Kitzbichler. Tom Rowland sits in third position, but for how long? Looks like Fleeracker's just going to have a little look up the inside, but he's not going to be close enough. So we have a quartet of riders out front, and then it's Levin Famara and Ton Nativi, Julius Frelsen, Alessandro Binder and Richard Ermscher, all protagonists of the weekend, battling for 5th position.
That's Frelsen up the inside of Pomara into the final corner. The 42 overtakes the 53. We've got some fastest laps coming through, and it's rolling on the number 2. He did start that previous lap in 4th. He's moved up to 3rd. We know he likes to get his elbows out as well, as we saw perfectly with Van Kruchten in yesterday's race. The top 4, the quartet, as you quite rightly mentioned, Chris, have now pulled away a 1:31.5. That is 1.5 seconds slower than yesterday's pole position. Friday's pole position time, but much faster than yesterday's race, as we can imagine, because it was damp conditions yesterday. It's bone dry out of circuit for now. However, Chris, I don't want to be the all doom and gloom Scotsman here in the commentary box along with you, but it's getting a little bit darker outside of our commentary box window.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Liam. Let's hope for a dry race. Now, it is Van Kruchten. I'm sure he is still hoping it's going to remain dry. Just missed out in the mixed conditions yesterday, and he's just about to miss out again here. No, not quite. In fact, it's Kitzbichler who's got problems with Tom Rowland trying to hang one on the outside. It's a 3-way fight for victory, but it is the Dutch rider Van Kruchten who is leading. The championship leader looking to extend his advantage, but for how long? We've seen Kitzbichler make a move here in the previous lap. Is he going to make that one stick? I don't think he's got it past Van Kruchten. So it's Van Kruchten who is still leading, but this group is very much bunching up. Now Kitzbichler's got the inside line, but again Van Kruchten closes the door and is just a little bit later on the brakes than the Austrian rider.
It looks like a group of 4 about to become a group of 6. We might have a 12-wheeler at the front of this pack, because Frelsen and Pomara is being dragged along as well, and Frelsen sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:31.3. That's 0.2 of a second faster than what we had a lap ago. So Frelsen is already there. Remember, Frelsen has not competed in the entirety of this championship. He's only done 1 round before this weekend, and he won that round back in, I must admit, it's Oschersleben he won in race number 1. So Chris, Frelsen, we know he's got pedigree in this championship, a championship contender last year, and he's shown why he's got the chops to fight with this group at the front.
Yeah, we've seen him on the European Talent Cup circuit as well, and the Danish rider is certainly one to watch out for in the future. You see that live cup standings, and he is just sitting in 4th position. I'm not quite sure that actually if that is the correct live cup standings, but we'll bring you them as the race goes on. But yeah, Julius Frelsen, a big talent, a chance of redemption for him to take a victory and back up his Oschersleben performance. But it's Van Kruchten and Kitzbichler who are leading the way here. Tom Rowland just swarming all over the rear wheel, and you can see Levin Famara has now entered the fray as well, Liam.
Yeah, it's a great battle here. Famara, who's wanting some redemption for race number 2 at the Sachsenring earlier on, as he was on for a podium before the rain hit the circuit, and he was one of the riders to unfortunately go down. And Chris, you're mentioning redemption quite a lot in this race for Frelsen. Essentially, we got told by our man on the ground, Oliver Seeley, that Frelsen means redemption in Danish. So yeah, Frelsen is well and truly in this and wants some redemption for yesterday's performance, and of course for missing out on another victory earlier on in the year. But here we go into turn number 1. We have some movers, and that's the 42 of Frelsen making a move into 3rd.
Every day is a learning day, Liam, and we're learning how to defend into the first corner with Tom Rowland. Brilliantly done from the young Belgian rider. He maintains that lead, but how many times will he be able to pull that off going into turn 1? Kitzbichler then sitting in 2nd, just ahead of Julius Frelsen, but for how long? Frelsen's got the inside line here and has moved into 2nd at the expense of the race 1 winner. This looks like it's Delano Greven, I think, who has gone down. Oh no, indeed, it's Mellgren who crashed out, a P6 finisher yesterday from P18. So there you go, the Swedish rider Valdemar Mellgren will play no further part in this weekend.
Great shame, because Mellgren had his best result of the season yesterday in race number 1. So disastrous there for the Swedish rider. And this group here, they were a group of 6. It's opening up to maybe a group of 7, group of 8. That second group, Chris, are now starting to close in on this top group, as the top 3, as we just get some confirmation of Delano Greven, who crashed out just before Melgren does. Maybe there was a coming together between the two into turn number 1. But we focus on the battle for first, and that's a group of 7 detached further back. That's Nativi, your podium finisher, second place and fastest lap in race number 1 yesterday. He's now starting to drag along Binder and the likes of the 23 of Pontillo, Kovacs and Martin Vincent, who celebrated his 15th birthday on Friday. He's looking for a big result, as well as Pomara and Frelson. Frelson late on the brakes, round the outside at turn number 1, and he's made it stick. So from 3rd to 1st, Frelson, the later of the late breakers, he leads with 11 laps to go here in Northern Talent Cup Race 2.
The fastest rider on circuit last time around was the rider running in P7, the number 95, Richard Ermscher. 1:31.7 was the quickest, and indeed it was quicker than all the riders ahead of him. The riders ahead of him, the top 6, are all in the mid 1:32s. It's the riders P7, P8, P9 are all in the high 1:31s. So some pace coming from a little deeper on the pack as we look what happened here going into turn 1.
Yeah,
Van Krugten with the inside line.
Yeah, Frelson round the outside, just let off the brakes did Frelson. He wasn't having that from Van Krugten. He wanted the lead, and he's well and truly setting about extending that advantage over Van Krugten. Roland tucking in behind your championship leader, and there's Pomara as well on the pink machine, the 53. He's looking for the inside line, but Roland tried to go around the outside of your race leader Frelson, but it's just pushed a little bit deep into the penultimate corner. That's given Van Krugten and Pomara an opportunity, but as we saw yesterday, Van Krugten later of the late breakers, and Roland had to settle for 3rd. But all this battling, Chris, is now allowing the riders further back, who you mentioned were faster than your leaders, to close up that gap. And we can see all the way down the home straight, almost 20 riders ended as they fan out across the circuit. It's Van Krugten who takes the lead. No, Frelson once again letting off the brakes. He holds stationary in the lead.
Yeah, look at that position progression from Frelson. P13 to P1 sounds a little bit familiar without giving too much away of what happened earlier on today. Not quite P1, but close enough. So, Frelson is your leader ahead of Van Krugten and Kitzbichler. Kitzbichler just managing to hold off the challenge of Fera Flierackers just as things stand. But yeah, we were looking at Levin Fomera. Tom Rollen was leading. He's all the way down in 6th position now. Nativi, Ermscher, Binder, Pontillo are all very much in this. But we can see just there behind Tom Rollen, a little bit of a gap has opened up to Anton Nativi. Just a few bike lengths. But Richard Ermscher and Nativi have been setting a phenomenal pace. They're still in the 1:31s last time around.
Yeah, if we look back to yesterday's race, we have to remember that Nativi set the fastest lap of the race as he stormed through to 2nd position. So we know that he's got great late race pace, does the French rider on the number 27. He's just a little bit detached from this front group as he had a move coming from Richard Ermscher for 7th and 8th just in the background there. So chopping and changing in the background, but if they keep duffing each other up, that will just let the top 7 get away as they're now starting to get into a rhythm as we cross the line to tick off another lap. That's lap 7 completed. Lap 8 we move on to now of 16, half race distance almost, as Van Krugten and Frelson side by side. Who is the later of the late breakers? It looks like it's the 38 of Kitzbichler, yesterday's race 1 winner, as Frelson runs a little bit deep into turn 1. He's dropped from 1st down to 4th, and there's the number 28 of Flierackers. Flierackers had some initial dominant speed early on, but he's dropping through the pack now. He's been pushed back another position. That's Nativi, I believe, that's now just got ahead of Flierackers. So Nativi, he's now making his move. As we talked about, he has some fantastic late race pace. It does it. The French rider, as the top 5 now start to try and make a bit of a break.
All to play for then. We've got multiple riders in this, and it is Kitzbichler, your race 1 winner, who is leading the pack. But we've had multiple leaders already across the opening laps, and we can very much expect that to change once again. Kitzbichler, I'll remind you, won it in the mixed conditions yesterday with a margin of about 9 seconds, I think it was. In the end, it was 7.2 seconds as things get a little bit close for comfort. Coming down the waterfall, Levin Fomera, the number 53, fancies one on the inside line. Will he make it stick? Not quite. He hasn't picked up any position. It's still Kitzbichler leading over Van Krugten and Rollen. Although the number 28 of Fera Flierackers has made his move, and moved into the podium positions.
Yeah, just ahead of his Junior Black Knights teammate of Roland, so Flea Rackers. He's now starting to make some moves. It looked like he was maybe dropping back a little bit last lap, but this lap for now, the 28, he's moved up into third, but for how long with his teammate number 2 Roland? But look at Frelson on the 42, not 1, not 2, but 3 into turn number 1. Frelson takes over 4th spot on the number 42 as Roland took advantage of his teammate running a little bit deep as well. So Roland on the number 2, he's back into second, but for now sitting pretty at the front is your championship leader Van Crookten, and that was Frelson making a move on Roland. So Roland on the 2, he's been nerfed out and he's about to lose another position to his Junior Black Knights teammate Flea Rackers, but in doing so he's pushed Flea Rackers out wide, and Pomara on the 53 has taken advantage of that. So Flea Rackers looking to take 4th has been dropped down to 2nd. Chris, this is all chopping and changing now. We did have the championship graphics come up a couple of laps ago. I think we can completely throw that out of the window, because until this checkered flag flies, we're not sure who's going to win this.
Yeah, it's very much anybody's race. Only what, about 1.8 seconds separates the top 13 riders in this race, so there's not a whole lot in it, particularly if they keep taking chunks out of each other over the next 7.5 laps, or just under 7.5 laps remaining. We could see that gap narrow down even more, but as things stand, Van Crookten and Kitzbichler remain the main protagonists in this race as Julius Frelson tries a little move up the inside. Will he get P3 off, take it off the hands of Tom Rowland? I don't think he's got that one stuck, but Frelson is very much a big race threat, and just as I say that, he loses a couple of positions to Levin Fomera and Farah Flea Rackers. But out front it's Van Crookten over the number 38 of Tobias Kitzbichler, with Rowland trying a little move up the inside. Ooh. Will he make it stick? Not quite.
That was Frelson there in the 42, getting a bit of a nerf from Pomara, I think it was. So Frelson's lost another couple of positions. He's now down into 6th with Flea Rackers, the Belgian rider, on the 28, just behind him. We've got another rider running away. That was Nativi, the French rider, on the number 27. He's been pushed down by Pomara. So Pomara, in the last couple of laps, has now been getting his elbows out ever so slightly. You can see him in 4th spot there on the pink machine, the number 53. So with all that bumping and boring, that's allowed the top 3 just to make a little bit of a break. And once again, as we saw yesterday, Roland just gets the rear tyre hooked up so beautifully coming down the hill as we have Nativi. So it's been a scrappy lap from Nativi, the French rider. He's been pushed out of the track, so he is now dropping all the way down to 8th spot down the waterfall. Here comes Pomara. He's gone from 4th to 1st and one fell swoop, and he takes the lead for the first time in this race. So Northern Talent Cup race number 2 is lighting up the Sachsenring circuit just as we hoped, and Pomara leads away, but not for long, because Van Crookten, your championship leader on the 36, takes the lead once more, and Flea Rackers, that's Frelson, he's now come to play as we tick off another lap. 6 to go in Northern Talent Cup race 2.
Fantastic stuff to watch. This is a great watch. Liam Van Crookten having the answers, just getting the better drive out of the corner as I should say Fomera looked to make it a 3-in-1 move, as now he coughs up another position. It's all changing in the provisional podium places, but Van Crookten is keeping his powder dry out front. Now it's Tom Rowland who's running in 2nd position, just ahead of Julius Frelson, with Fomera, who was temporarily leading, coming down the waterfall, already back in 4th position.
I can't call this one, Chris. I hope you can. I would ask you to pick a winner from these 15 riders in this leading group. It goes all the way back down to Martin Vincent on the number 12. He's the last one in this group, 1.7 seconds back from your race leader. We're going to take a replay now of what happened into turn number 1. Pomara comes out from under the bubble, but Van Crookten, as we've seen so many times this weekend on the 36, later of the late breakers, and Frelson as well looking up the inside. Number 38 of Kitzbichler, he was late on the brakes, diving early for the early apex of turn number 1. Tom Rowland on the 2 slots in, but Van Crookten brilliantly once more just dives for the apex into turn 1 and holds on to lead. But it's Rowland now, the Belgian rider who did pick up 3rd place yesterday. He leads the way as we come up the hill into the final corner. There will be 5 laps to go as Van Crookten once again takes over at the front. He runs a little bit deep, rolling side by side. This is some great racing, some clean racing, I must admit, Chris. I don't want to jinx it just yet from all of these 13 riders as Pomara 3 abreast, 4 abreast into turn number 1. Who's late of the late breakers? It's going to be Kitzbühel and Frelsen. He's gone from 7th to 2nd. Wow, unbelievable move from the 42. Frelsen out of absolute nowhere, rolling. He's managed to swoop back around the outside, but Frelsen, my goodness me, he came from mid-pack to 2nd, but he's dropped back into 3rd as we go through the Omega curve with 4.5 laps to go.
Absolutely dynamite move from the Danish rider. He's back into the podium positions, but for how long? We've seen Leven van Meraar try a couple moves already. Coming down the waterfall, he seems to enjoy that, and he's very much elbows out. But Jurjen van Crookten, he's been demoted. We're used to seeing him at the very front of things, but he's been demoted to 5th place as it's Tobias Kitzbühel, a rider we're used to seeing out front, currently leading the race over Rollin. But it's all chopping and changing once again. We've got Frelsen and van Meraar just going shoulder to shoulder there, and it's van Meraar who has taken 3rd position off the Danish rider. Does he fancy another move up the inside of Tom Roland here? He might just do, as does Frelsen. 2, 3 abreast coming down the waterfall, and it's van Meraar who moves into 2nd position with Roland dropping into 3rd. Frelsen doesn't pick up any positions this time around.
I was saying a lap ago this has all been kept clean, but now it looks like it's getting a little bit frantic out there. 4 laps to go now, and it's Kitzbühel in the 38 leading the way from Pomara, and Roland is 4 laps to go. They were on lap number 13 here at the Sachsenring, and late on the brakes it's Roland, but watch out for 42 Frelsen. He did it 1 lap ago. He didn't take quite as many. He runs a little bit deep. Pomara will take advantage of that once more. We've got a rider in the background going slow. He set up, that's 23. That's I think
Lorenzo
that's the number.
Pontillo.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Chris.
Issue.
Oh,
it's a shame for him. He was running with that top group, just running at the back of it for the last few laps, but it seemed a technical issue anyways.
Oh, goodness me, get off that bike. Come on.
Into flames.
Guys, he needs to get off that bike.
Into flames. Look, Pontillo's bike, he needs to get off that. I don't think he actually caught that it had burst into flames, but let's hope he's going to be okay. Back out front then, it's Tobias Kitzbühel, the number 38, leading over Tom Roland and Leven van Meraar. Van Meraar and Roland are side by side. Van Meraar is just getting side by side any rider he can, but he does take 2nd position off the Belgian rider with Julius Frelsen then running in 4th position ahead of the championship leader Jurjen van Crookten. Van Crookten then an opportunity to see his racecraft. He is the championship leader for a reason. He's just keeping his powder dry, keeping his nose clean. I say that he tries a little move up the inside, but maybe he's just waiting for his moment to strike towards the end, trying to avoid any potential trouble or collisions that may happen amidst all the chopping and changing ahead of him.
Yeah, Van Crookten dive for the inside there. I was going to say, I think maybe some of them are starting to keep their powder dry like Van Crookten, but after seeing them darting for the apex there, I don't think any of them have got a game plan here. I just think they're all going all out. See how it plays out with 3 laps to go. And Frelsen once again, I think that's Frelsen, up the inside into turn 1. Yes, it was the 42 of Frelsen. We've seen it so many times this race. He dives for an early apex, latest of the late breakers. He did go from 7th into 2nd a couple of laps ago. This time around it was only the 1 position from 3rd into 2nd, but nonetheless it's Frelsen that's in 2nd spot behind yesterday's race 1 winner Kitzbühel, and we have 6 riders in your leading group, but it's Nativi, the French rider who was running off track, having a ton of moments only a couple of laps ago. He is now back into it. He's now starting to hunt down that leading group as Frelsen looks for the inside lane at the bottom of the hill. Not quite yet. Kitzbühel brilliantly swoops around the outside with Pomara on the 53. He's there, but he's just lost a position to Flea Rackers. Pomara sets up a little bit like clockwork we've seen in the last couple of laps. Pomara is brilliant down the waterfall. Once again, he holds that 3rd position. Side by side action down the waterfall we go. 4, 5, 6, 7 abreast almost. Who's it going to be? Oh wow, it's Roland, I think, that was actually into. Oh, there's a bit of contact there with Flea Rackers, and I think Van Crookten, Chris, that could have been disaster for your championship leader.
Yeah, very close to disaster, and it's all bunched up again. And we earmarked Fera Fleerackers at the beginning of the race. The number 28 now sits in second position. He was the fastest rider on circuit on the previous lap. We'll take a look at the timing screens as they come across again. But a 1:31.7 and a 1:31.7 from the front two have them much quicker than any of the riders behind them on track. It's a Junior Black Knights 1-2 as things stand, and just over a lap and a half to go, Liam.
Yeah, they'll be absolutely jumping for joy down in the Junior Black Knights squad, hoping that these two hold position and don't collide. But Fleerackers is getting nerfed out by Frelson. We've seen so many times Frelson has just hugs that tight line, and so Frelson with Pomara almost taking advantage of Fleerackers being offline a little bit. If this is your first time watching Northern Talent Cup, where have you been? Because this is absolutely wall-to-wall brilliant action here in the Sachsenring with a lap and a half to go. It's Roland leading the way from Frelson, Fleerackers, but not for long as Frelson looks for the inside line. Fleerackers tries to hang it around the outside, but Pomara, he's going to take advantage. Down the waterfall we go. Van Krugten, he's there in fifth, side by side once more. Chris, who is it going to be leading into the penultimate corner with just a lap and a bit to go? Here comes Kitzbühel from sixth to the lead. The 38 takes over at the front.
Yeah, drama to the very end then here in the Northern Talent Cup at the Sachsenring. It is Tobias Kitzbühel who is leading. Coming over the line for the penultimate time, it's Kitzbühel over the championship leader, Dutch rider Jurien van Krugten, Tom Rowland, Julius Frelson, Fera Fleerackers, Anton Nativi, and a whole host of other riders see their name in the lights. But who is going to take the win here? We've got just under a lap going. Is that Nativi, who's been bunted out wide? Another rider out of the seat, but it's Rowland over Kitzbühel and van Krugten.
Yeah, that was Frelson that punted Nativi out wide. The French rider was looking pretty in second. He has closed the gap to the front group, but Frelson, he punted him out wide. Frelson's on the back of this leading group of four at the moment. Roland Kitzbühel, yesterday's race one winner. Van Krugten looking for his fourth win of the season, your championship leader, and Frelson looking for redemption here in Sachsenring with his second race win of the season. These four look to be your race winning battle as Frelson goes for the inside line on Van Krugten, but not yet. He has to settle in behind your championship leader, Chris.
Yeah, Roland has already tasted victory this season, and guess where that came in, Liam? That was at race 2 at the Sachsenring. He's looking to repeat history here, but he's got trouble behind him. The number 38 Austrian rider Tobias Kitzbühel coming down the waterfall. Will he get the inside line? Van Krugten's adopted the outside one.
And Pomara
coming through, and Julius Frelson, Liam. It's all a couple corners to go. It's all on this.
It's going to be anyone. It could be any one of these 10, maybe more. Pomara up the inside. Van Krugten, but here comes Kitzbühel. Yes, it is race one winner. Cannot do it. Can it be Van Krugten holding it to the line? The 36, the championship leader. He's back to winning ways here in this Sachsenring after taking his first victory of the year. Here back in round number 2, he does it once again. Van Krugten just holds it by 1/10 of a second over Tobias Kitzbühel, and Tom Rowland picks up his third place of the weekend. Pomara, Frelson, Fleerackers, Ermshire, Nativi all just miss out, but they're all oh so close. But what can we say, Chris? Brilliant stuff from Tobias Kitzbühel to almost take it from Van Krugten.
Yeah, you could throw a blanket over the top four, less than 2/10 of a second, but brilliant from Van Krugten. He gets a little bit of Sachsenring revenge. Having missed out on the podium yesterday, he now extends his championship advantage over Tobias Kitzbühel by 5 more points. So it was 21 coming into this race. It is now 26 with 2 rounds remaining and 4 races. Van Krugten is very much in pole position to seal the deal this year in the Northern Talent Cup.
Yeah, I'm so glad you done the maths on that one there, Chris, because I would have probably added an extra 10 onto that one and got it completely wrong. But yes, as you say, Van Krugten extends his championship lead by 1 point. Actually, he came into this round 25 points ahead. He's now taken over a full race wins worth and 26 points ahead for the young Dutch rider. We do have a star in the making on the road to MotoGP, Van Krugten, but what about the number 38 of Kitzbühel? First yesterday, second today, 45 points all in the bank. He will consider that a very good job indeed for the young Austrian as he pops a massive wheelie down the waterfall. And very, very impressive wheelie. A 10 out of 10 there for Tobias, and he still remains a two-time winner here in Northern Talent Cup.
Yeah, P2, P2, P1, P2 in his last 4 races. We said he is hitting form at the right time, and he's, what, 20, I've already forgotten, 26 points behind Van Kruchten now. With 4 races to go, if Kitzbühler can remain on that type of form, he will certainly be a contender at the end of the season. The only problem he has is Van Kruchten is in form too, consistently picking up podiums or top 4 finishes. Tom Rowland then, a race winner in this class, he was leading with just a couple corners to go, picks up the podium ahead of Leven van Pomara by just 0.08 of a second, but it's a double podium for the young Belgian rider. Superb weekend at the Sachsenring for Rowland.
Yeah, so this is the replay of the final lap. Kitzbühler almost running onto the green. That would have been an automatic drop 1 position if he had done, but kept it squeaky clean into the penultimate corner as Van Kruchten swept for the lead. Managed to hold it as he crossed the line, just 1/10 of a second ahead of his nearest now championship rival, Tobias Kitzbühler, and you could almost cover them with a sheet of paper as they all crossed the line. It was 1.2 seconds all the way back to Kovacs in 12th spot. Chris, how close do you want it here in the Northern Talent Cup?
Classic NTC fashion, isn't it, Liam? Just being bunched up with nothing decided until they exit the final corner. And it was very much the case again here today, and with 4 races remaining, I guess we'll see it 1 or 2 more times.
Yeah, we absolutely will. It's Northern Talent Cup at its absolute finest here in the Sachsenring. And for the fans that did stick around, there were many. There were a lot more than there were yesterday, but you cannot blame the fans yesterday wanting to get some well, shade away from the rain, because it was a very wet and soggy day yesterday. Thankfully, it was sun shining here in the Sachsenring and there were no storms overhead, but there was definitely a storm on the racetrack, and a brilliant one. So the lightning strike for Van Kruchten, who takes his 4th victory of the season and now looks to be odds-on favourite, Chris, for the championship.
Yeah, absolutely, but he does have some problems in the terms of the championship chase, namely Tobias Kitzbühler, one of the form riders. Having a little look through the championship standings, and you have the likes of Anton Nativi. Nativi picked up a P2 here yesterday, but it was P8 today, so he's going to lose some ground. Richard Irmscher as well, P7, loses a bit more ground. Julius Frelsen, as you mentioned, he hasn't been around for the opening rounds, but did pick up a win last time out in Oschersleben, I should say. And it's probably just a little too late for him now to put together a championship tilt, given the form of both Van Kruchten and Kitzbühler.
Yeah, it'll be very tough for Frelsen. Once again, he might just have to be the bride or the bridesmaid in this championship, but he won't be too disappointed, I don't think, with that, because he has been competing in other championships this year. As we see our eyes and ears on the ground, Oliver Seeley in the blue cap, just telling the riders to head on up to the podium, where we will see them very shortly take their trophies.
So a run through of the results from race 2 in the Northern Talent Cup at the Sachsenring. We'll have the graphic momentarily, but it was Jurjen Van Kruchten who took the win, and not by much. He only had a couple hundredths, less than 1/10 of a second separating Van Kruchten and Tobias Kitzbühler. We'll have a look at them now. Well, we'll run through. Here we go. Jurjen Van Kruchten, then your race winner. Confirmation of that, it was the number 36 from the Netherlands ahead of Kitzbühler. Tom Rowland then pipped Leven van Pomara to the final podium place. Julius Frelsen in 5th ahead of Fedde Vlierackers. Irmscher, Nativi, Ben Wigner pick up some good top 10 scoring positions, with Martin Vince from Hungary completing the top 10. Binder, Kovacs, Wenzel, Krabacker and Matteo Massili, the rest of your point scorers. Massili recovering some grid drama to take the final point scoring place ahead of Swan Emprin and Alexander Weisel. David Sidorov from the Ukraine, the final rider to take the checkered flag, as Lorenzo Portillo, Valdemar Melgarin and Delano Grevin all failed to see the checkered flag. And this is what it does to the championship standings. We'll have confirmation in a moment that Van Kruchten has moved 26 points clear of Tobias Kitzbichler. Indeed, we won't, but I can tell you it's Van Kruchten who is top of the championship ahead of Tobias Kitzbichler with a 26 point advantage. So, time for the podium ceremony. 3 different nationalities represented, with the top step going to the Netherlands.
Yeah, we wait for the top 3 coming out, and Chris, you absolutely nailed the championship standings there. I'm very glad that you were counting your maths and it wasn't left up to me whatsoever.
It was a stab in the dark, Liam. It could be any numbers. I was just plucking them out of a hat, but thankfully I think they fell the right way for me. I must buy myself a lotto ticket a little bit later.
Yeah, you give yourself a wee pat on the back for that one, as we will see very shortly the top 3 coming out onto the podium, along with, well, team representatives. But for Tom Rowland, it's been a successful weekend. Third place yesterday, 3rd place again today for the number 2 Belgian rider on the Junior Black Knights machine. Couldn't quite get the upper hand over Tobias Kitzbichler, who takes a solid 45 points from the weekend and closes in general, over the course of the weekend, on your race 2 winner. He picks up his 4th victory of the season. Jeroen Van Kruchten, the Dutch rider, a dauntless Dutch rider who is destined for great things, but he now has to hold that 26 points over the champion, or over his nearest challenger, which is Kitzbichler, who will be receiving his trophy in a second. We just saw Tom Rowland there. He got his 3rd place trophy of the weekend. A big cheer from his team and fans below. Tobias Kitzbichler lifts atop his 2nd place trophy. A very big smile as he will take that one home along with his race winning trophy from yesterday. But the biggest smile in the paddock, it's going to be Jeroen Van Kruchten, your race 2 winner here in the Sachsenring. His 4th victory of the season to extend his championship lead to 26 points. The air horns go off, the Dutch national anthem sings over the Sachsenring circuit here in Germany for your race 2 winner, Jeroen Van Kruchten. So the riders will be posing very shortly for their photos, and they will be back in action in 6 weeks' time as Northern Talent Cup heads to Assen once again. So, as we digest what happened in race number 2 here at the Sachsenring, we have witnessed another Sachsenring stunner here in the Northern Talent Cup, and it's a Sachsenring stinger to his championship rivals from Jeroen Van Kruchten. Came into this round 25 points ahead in the standings, but leaves 1 point better off. But he's now got Tobias Kitzbichler chasing him down in the championship. There are now 4 rounds left to go. 100 points left on the table here in the Northern Talent Cup, as the championship rolls on to Jeroen Van Krukten's home round in the Netherlands, Assen. Once again, after hosting round number 1, they'll do battle again in round number 6 of the Northern Talent Cup. Can anyone stop, your championship leader and the rider to beat here in the Northern Talent Cup, Joran van Kruchten. Join us again on the 10th of August for round number 6 at Assen.